So there was a newer Arctic News blog post from November 24th. The breach of the Paris Agreement. This is by Andrew Glickson. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just kind of go through it a little bit. And we were talking about reaching 1.5 or passing 1.5 C just earlier in this video. Since its inception, the Paris Agreement has been in question due to, among other things, its broad definition specifically holding the increase in the global average temperature to well below 2°C, above pre-industrial levels, and pursuing efforts to limit the temperature increase to 1.5°C above pre-industrial levels. Its non-binding nature, accounting tricks by vested interests. The goal assumes predetermined limits can be placed on greenhouse gas levels and temperatures beyond which they would not continue to rise. Unfortunately, these targets do not appear to take account of the amplifying positive feedback effects from land and oceans under the high cumulative greenhouse gas levels and their warming effects. Thus, unfortunately, the current high CO2 levels of about 408 parts per million, we have reached 415, and the near 500 parts per million CO2 equivalent, that's CO2, methane, and nitrous oxide, would likely continue to push temperatures upwards. Significant climate science evidence appears to have been left out of the equation. For real. The Accord hinges on the need to reduce emissions, which is essential, but it does not indicate how further temperature rise can be avoided under the conditions of a high CO2 atmosphere, which triggers carbon release unless massive efforts at sequestration, drawdown of greenhouse gases are undertaken. Inherent in global warming are amplifying positive feedbacks, including albedo reflection decline due to the melting of the ice and the opening of dark water surfaces, increased water vapor contents of the atmosphere in tropical regions, which enhances the greenhouse effect. Reduced sequestration of CO2 by the warming oceans, desiccation of vegetation, fires, release of methane from permafrost and other processes. This means that even abrupt reductions in emissions may not be sufficient to stem global warming unless accompanied by sequestration of greenhouse gases from the atmosphere to a lower level, recommended as below 350 parts per million CO2 by James Hansen, the leading climate scientist. The question that was posed, that was asked, was how do we do this? Or what are the fixes that we could do to get carbon levels lower in the atmosphere? So, kind of in line with this, I wanted to read a comment from Joseph Seeley. He's left a few really good comments, and I haven't had a chance to read his comments lately, but this, he proposes, and this is kind of in line with Walter Jane and others who are talking about ways to use agriculture, regreening, etc., for the drawing down of CO2 and the cooling of land temperatures. So Joseph Seeley says, we can do it by going vegan and properly using the resulting land that is freed up, producing food from nature, mimicking systems like food forests, grow food, not lawns, reforesting, rewilding the 5 billion hectares currently used in agriculture. We can sequester enough carbon on that land to be carbon negative without any emissions reductions within a couple years, and continue for at least 20 years at deeply carbon negative. I don't know about the exact science of this. I'm just reading his comment. I don't know if anybody has any supporting science to back this up. It is enough that we could be back to 300 parts per million CO2. This would give us a chance to draw down emissions, avoid the aerosol unmasking effect, and address all the other environmental concerns like habitat loss, groundwater, aquifer depletion, erosion, desertification, etc. Sustainable selective harvesting of wood for building materials, fibers, and fuel can still occur. It extends the size of the sink when done properly. Pyrolysis of waste materials and pollards can turn 30% of the carbon in the material into biochar, which can then last for centuries or even millennia in the soil. The resulting wood gas can be used for cooking, offsetting fossil fuel use. Durable goods made from wood can last several decades, in some cases centuries, in which time the forest can have fully recovered, been selectively harvested again, and onto third or fourth round. In the case of biochar, it can result in extending the sink up to 50 times or more. We have near unlimited ability to sequester carbon this way. So as long as we slow down emissions enough that we can deal with only sequestering at a 30% rate, pollards can regrow every year, sometimes twice a year, and at proper density mean keeping complete canopy cover. Timing the cutting of pollards with flowering and fruiting of other trees allows for increased overall output by opening up sunlight for them as needed. Planting trees at super high density and thinning over time. Making sure understory trees are well established before cutting overstory trees can keep the canopy complete and ensure a consistent supply of wood. Canopy cover and the light it captures is effectively the upper level of CO2 absorbed. As long as we keep the canopy complete, we are maximizing CO2 drawdown on the land. What are your guys, what is the thoughts on this? What are the thoughts on this? Sorry, I can't speak English at the moment. Y'all have any thoughts on rewilding, regreening, sustainable agriculture as a means to draw down CO2 and to keep temperatures down? I don't know. I'm highly interested in this. If this is our best and most natural hope, this is probably the way that we're going to have to go if we have any chance whatsoever.